Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to see you virtually, and I welcome you to the second session in our undergraduate webinar series. We are an interactive online platform that connects high school students with the Ashoka community. In this series, we will cover all topics related to Ashoka's undergraduate program. Our esteemed faculty and academic counselors will guide students in understanding life at the university, the academic student life here, the admission procedure, the curriculars, all of it. I am Vignesh Hampapura, a student of literature at Ashoka University, and I will moderate today's session, Undergraduate Academics at Ashoka by Professor Jonathan Gil Harris. I remember when I had to write applications for colleges and hunt for really good undergraduate programs, what really helped me were information sessions that gave me a comprehensive idea about the university. And I clearly remember it was an article about liberal arts education at Ashoka by Professor Gil Harris that led me here. And what a crucial article that was to help me make a decision. This webinar is one such session where Professor Gil Harris will interact with you about how we do academics at Ashoka. What's different here? What is a liberal arts education? How can we pursue all our interests and hobbies? How do we choose our subjects? What are the majors and minors? I'm sure you have all these questions and more, and this session will address them. If you have any questions during the session, please post them in the Q&A box below, and we will take them at the end of the session. Now I welcome Professor Jonathan Gil Harris, who is Professor of English and Chair of the English Department at Ashoka University, an extraordinary Shakespearean who makes us fall in love with literature. Professor Harris previously taught at George Washington University and flew here as founding faculty at Ashoka. He has been instrumental as the founding Dean of Academic Affairs to nurture the academic ethos with which we all continue to function in the university. And who can give us a better overview of what it means to study at Ashoka? Professor, thank you for joining us. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Vignesh. And I didn't know that an article of mine was responsible for your coming to Ashoka, but I'm certainly very flattered to hear that. And I hope that my presentation today can be only half as effective in convincing some of you that Ashoka is the place to be. So I'm going to share my screen now. And I'm going to run a show that will give you, hopefully, a sense of what an academic education at Ashoka is like. So if you are here today, chances are that you've already associated Ashoka University with the phrase liberal education. But many of you might be wondering, but what exactly is a liberal education? Does it mean liberal politically? Well, no, not really. The word liberal, of course, comes from an old Latin word, liber, meaning free. And so liberal education is very much associated with the idea, and it's something of a radical idea in the Indian context, that Indian students should be free to choose their course of study once they come to the university. In other words, they're not being given a cookie cutter education that they have been streamed into by passing a cutoff of some kind. Instead, once admitted to Ashoka, students undergo a process of liberal exposure to a variety of subjects that covers the entire spectrum from humanities and arts through social sciences to natural sciences. Many people assume that because liberal education often goes under the name of liberal arts, that it's only arts. That has never been the case, whether in classical Greece, where liberal arts started, or in India, where there were versions of liberal arts at places like Nalanda University. But here at Ashoka, we have a very robust science program that is importantly in dialogue with the social sciences and the arts and humanities. And that's something else that makes liberal arts distinctive. At many universities in India, you will find faculties in these three streams, but the idea is that they're streams and therefore separate from each other. At Ashoka, by contrast, we emphasize interdisciplinarity. It's really important, we feel, for students within any one subject of specialization to have their education oxygenated by multiple perspectives that cross the entire spectrum from the humanities to the sciences. Now, the big advantage of this approach is that it allows not only for depth in a specific field, but also breadth. And right now, it is absolutely crucial that we educate our next generation in a way that allows them to be versatile and flexible across many disciplines. One of the problems with the standard education system is that because it cleaved very much to a vocational training model, and I might go beyond that and say because it was the legacy of a British education that was not particularly interested in actually educating people, but creating docile, compliant people who do what they're told. The idea of looking at any problem from multiple perspectives was anathema. At Ashoka, we try to correct that by inviting people who major in economics to acquire specialization also in history, in English, in science, in maths. And conversely, anyone who is majoring in my discipline, English, we want them to have some kind of familiarity with economics, with history, with anthropology, with mathematics, with biology. But it's not the disciplines that count so much as a cluster of skills that are really quite unique to Ashoka, that have been tailor-made for the challenges of a new world, which we're increasingly witnessing in this uncertain period during and post-COVID. Skills of critical thinking, skills of problem solving, skills of communication, skills of teamwork, skills of being able to adapt to new problems as they suddenly suggest themselves, rather than being trained to fix problems that were already solved 200 years ago. All this is part and parcel of what a liberal education means. What makes Ashoka unique, then? It's not just the liberal education that we offer. There are now other institutions in India that offer a liberal education. But we think that we do it in a way that is very unique and that in particular is mindful of our context here in India. Now, so many of the aspects that I've just spoken about that are integral to a liberal arts education are part of what you'll find at Ashoka. Students are encouraged to explore before they choose. I want to stress this. No one is admitted to Ashoka to study a subject. No one is admitted for economics or physics or history. Everyone is admitted only as an Ashoka student. And during the course of their first year, they take a variety of foundational classes. It's only after the first year that students choose what their major is going to be, and it is often very different from what they thought it was going to be. Something else that is different about Ashoka is that students really get to learn from the best. I know I'm a little biased as a faculty member at Ashoka, but I think I can say with full sincerity that I've never met as accomplished a collective as the faculty at Ashoka. We have people who are the very best in their fields, not only in India, but in the world. Ours is a truly global faculty, a faculty that thinks globally, but has its feet firmly rooted in Indian soil. Our liberal education also moves beyond that old Indian standby of rote learning. Yes, there's some things that you have to commit to memory. But one of the things I've always insisted on is that if you're simply trying to memorize what your professor has told you, then you have unwittingly been subscribed to what I call the today, Gyan tomorrow model of learning, which means knowledge is just a commodity that you store away for a few months until you take the exams, you give it back dutifully to the professor, and then you forget all about it. Instead, at Ashoka, what we emphasize is learning in a classroom space that is fundamentally dialogic. And by that I mean one in which there is conversation between the professor and the students, between the students. We feel that often the best teacher of a student are their peers. One learns most from talking with, arguing with, disagreeing with, asking questions of the people around you. And since the time I came to Ashoka, I've been pleading with students, stay on the left-hand side of the question mark. I mean, don't rush to the right-hand side, which is the space of the answer. We are so trained in India to think if there's a question, I need to answer it straight away to get it right. Because if I don't get it right, I won't get 100 on 100. And if I don't get 100 on 100, I won't pass the cutoff. And if I don't pass the cutoff, I won't get the degree. And if I don't get the degree, I won't get the career. And if I don't get the career, I won't get the money. And if I don't get the money, I'll be a failure. We instead want to cultivate a culture in which people are comfortable with questions, comfortable inhabiting uncertainty, not for the sake of uncertainty, but for recognizing that the best way to problem solve is to inhabit multiple perspectives, to look at a problem from a variety of disciplinary angles, and to keep asking questions of it. Indeed, the very idea of questioning is embodied in the literal meaning of the word education. It comes from the Latin ex ducere, which means to lead out of yourself. You have to get out of yourself. You have to get out of what you think you know. You have to question everything to be educated. This is something that Indians have been very good at in the past. The entire tradition of Shastras is all about debate, questioning, argumentation. Under British colonialism, that desire to debate got snuffed. Questioning became something disrespectful and rude. But that, of course, served the interests of the colonial authorities. We want people to be able to question everything, including power. One other thing I'd insist is that at Ashoka, contrary to what a lot of people may think, our education is very affordable. Compared to American universities that offer liberal educations, we cost a fraction as much. But it's not just about the sticker price of Ashoka. It's the fact that we want the students who pass our admissions process to come to Ashoka no matter what. And so if a student for some reason cannot pay, if they do not have the means, we offer very, very good financial aid packages that make it possible for the student to come. Something else that is distinctive about Ashoka, we don't think of you in terms of your grades. This is true from the admissions point to the end. We're not thinking of you as a percentage. This is very hard for students to unlearn. We've noticed this, that when they come to Ashoka, they're very, very fretful and anxious about what's my percentage? What's my grade point average? They feel that that defines who they are. We don't look at that primarily. We're much more interested in who you're becoming, not only as an intellect, but also as an ethical citizen. We always say at Ashoka, we want not only the best students in India, but the best students for India. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a diverse and vibrant student body. Again, the rumor you may have heard about Ashoka is that it's full of rich kids. It's not. Something like 50% of our students are on financial aid packages of some kind. But we also have students that represent so many different communities across the country and indeed around South Asia. We have students who represent all the states in India, all the official 18 languages, across all the official religious communities as well. India's best have contributed to Ashoka at the level of faculty, but also at the level of the founders, the people who've reached deep into their pockets to help bankroll Ashoka. You'll meet some of them soon. Now, let me tell you a little bit about the undergraduate program and the classroom experience you would have at Ashoka. I've already mentioned that in the first year, students take foundation courses. These are not introductions to subjects or to majors, but ways of thinking that we believe are absolutely crucial for anyone, no matter what subject they end up specializing in. Come the second year, they begin to move into their major and minor courses. They also take co-curricular courses in subjects like arts, languages, theatre, music. And we've always said that Ashoka is a 4-year program. The University Grants Commission insisted that we award our bachelor's degrees after 3 years. You may have read about this some time ago, that the UGC decided in its wisdom that 3 years was the proper duration for an undergraduate course of study. But we're still insistent that 4 years is what you need to acquire the depth and breadth that is the hallmark of an Ashoka education. That 4th year now is optional, but it is something that a majority of Ashoka students choose to take because not only do they enjoy Ashoka so much they want to stay, they also realize that in order to get the most out of the liberal arts experience, that 4th year where they get to write a thesis, where they get to take subjects outside their major field, where they get to serve as a teaching assistant, this is absolutely crucial to their development, their education, not only for potentially higher studies, but for the world. Our foundation courses, as you see, cover a variety of perspectives. There's that phrase at the bottom left, critical thinking again. What's critical thinking? It's the ability to think out loud in a spirit of questioning. And thinking out loud means not being an Arnab Goswami who simply shouts his or her opinions at others. It is all about being able to get inside the shoes of others. It's about being able to think about where someone else is coming from, inhabit their perspective, and say, that may not be mine, but I can understand where it comes from. Only then can you respond to it in a spirit of empathy and informed disagreement. That is the basis of the foundation courses, ethical engagement with difference, because whether we like it or not, we live in a world where people have many, many different perspectives. Learning to live with difference, learning to disagree in a way that doesn't devolve into shouting, anger, violence, is an ethical imperative in the world we live in now. Other foundation courses that students take, Literature in the World, that's not an English course, but it's a course about stories and their importance in the world. And stories, of course, pop up in virtually every sphere, even in science. Quantitative thinking exposes students to the world of numbers without being simply a mathematics course. Principles of Science get students thinking about what are the basic assumptions of scientific knowledge without being a physics or biology or chemistry course. Environmental studies make students aware that we always live in a larger world in which humans have an impact. We're not simply masters of that world, we're custodians of it. We need to respect it and pass it on to a next generation with care. A very crucial foundation course is something called Indian Civilizations. Note the plural S. There's not one Indian civilization, there are many. And we want our students to recognize that South Asia has always been a space of dynamic conversation between multiple traditions. Economics, Politics, and Society introduces students to a constellation of questions that have to do with how societies are organized, how money works, how government works. Mind and behavior is right at the interface between philosophy and psychology, and gets students to do, in a way, the opposite of what they're doing in economics, politics, and society. That is, to look inward rather than outward. And great books looks at books from across a variety of cultures, across a variety of disciplines, to think about what has influenced us to think the way we do now. There are many majors, minors, and co-curriculars at Ashoka. You can look at the list. You can see virtually everything that you find at any other university is here, but there's a lot that's also quite distinctive with our interdisciplinary majors, which encourage people not to settle in one discipline, but to engage in conversation across the boundaries dividing them. I just want to give a shout out to a couple of interdisciplinary majors that are distinctive to Ashoka: computer science and entrepreneurial leadership. It's one of our hallmark interdisciplinary majors, but also our newest interdisciplinary major, English Performing Arts. That gives you an indication of how broad our disciplinary spectrums are. Our faculty is just extraordinary. We now have well over 100 faculty who come from the very best institutions around the world and India, divided equally between men and women, as you see here. We have quite a few international faculty, but what distinguishes our international faculty, including me, is that we all work not only in India, but on India and in Indian languages. Maybe desi hoon aajkal. Our fourth year Ashoka Scholars Program, I've already told you about it. It's that optional fourth year that the UGC made us make optional, but we think it's absolutely crucial. I can't sing its praises enough. I have watched the students who've gone through this fourth year after the 3 years of their undergraduate degree blossom in a way you would never expect. They click up not 1, but 10 levels. And the students who go through this fourth year program are the ones who have done extraordinarily well afterwards, occupying positions of leadership in so many sectors, from the private to the social sector to the educational sector. Now, at Ashoka, we encourage our students to think locally, but to connect globally. We have many summer and semester abroad programs in Britain, in Europe, in America, increasingly in Asia too, even though that's not represented here. We have new partnerships with Hong Kong, partnerships with my country of origin, New Zealand too. We have extraordinary international partners. As you can see, many Ivy League universities, as well as top universities from other parts of the world. Our admissions process is also unique. I think we're alone amongst universities in India by not imposing cutoffs. We don't think grades tell us a huge amount about you. Of course, they're important, and during admissions, we want to look at your transcripts. But we also want to interview you to get a sense of who you are in conversation. That spark of something special can often be completely invisible in the board exam system. And I think it's well named the board exams because there's nothing that can leave you more bored than mugging up the board exams that exemplify the here today, gyan tomorrow model. We want to talk with you, get a sense of how you think, get a sense of your passions, get a think of how you ask questions, what questions you're asking of the world. And that plays a significant role in our decision whether or not to accept you. I've mentioned already that we offer need-based financial aid. You can talk about this with our financial aid office staff or look at our website to find out just how extensive these packages are. I think you'll be interested in our campus life. COVID may have ended life on campus for everyone for now, but we're hoping to return to campus sometime in the near future once it becomes safe. And we have a very vibrant life in our campus in Sonipat. So one of the things that drives campus life is that students have created and lead many clubs and societies. You can see some of them here. I should mention that Vignesh, who introduced me, is one of the leaders of Epigraph, the literary society. This is typical of how students work at Ashoka. If they're passionate about something, they form a club. We have exemplary sports and fitness facilities, including a state-of-the-art gym and swimming pool. But the important thing is that we're keeping you not only intellectually and physically active in the classroom and our sports and fitness centres, but we're keeping you culturally engaged. There are no end of performances and cultural events at Ashoka. But most of all, it's the other students that make you feel that you have stepped into a world that is very different from the one that you've grown up in. Everyone at Ashoka is likely to end up sharing their hostel room with someone who comes from a different part of the country and maybe a different part of the world. This is a deliberate policy on our part. We try to pair people up who have different stories. That is crucial to the liberal education as well. Learning to live with someone who comes from a different background than you. We do very well with placements, even though placements is not the be-all and end-all. It's important that once you leave Ashoka, that we feel that we have guided you towards the next stage. We think we do that very well. And we have an exemplary, I'd say, unrivaled record in placements. These are just some of the companies that have hired Ashokan graduates. But look also where our students go for higher studies. We're already placing our students in the very top universities abroad, Ivy League universities, Oxbridge, Sciences Po in France, you name it. The placement rate for our students in higher graduate programs, the top graduate programs that are in the top 20, and you notice no Indian university yet has made the top 300, but Ashoka's placing students in top 20 universities. So thank you very much. That's all I want to say for now. We want to turn things over as quickly as possible to a Q&A. So let me welcome Vignesh back now, who's going to engage me with some of the questions you've been asking during this process. So Vignesh, vapas aao.
Yes, Professor, here I am. So one of the questions is, and I think we should get this done immediately because I had this concern too when I was applying, is the fees. And so they want to know more about the financial aid. And, some people think it's a scholarship and that it's merit-based. So, I thought we should just clear that area first.
Yep. So let me state quite clearly, we have no merit-based scholarships. All our financial aid packages are for those who are in economic need. So if you can pay, you will pay. But if for some reason you can't pay, we have various gradations of financial aid. So we support people who are in some need. We support people who are in dire need. We have supported fully many students who come from grindingly poor backgrounds, but who are astonishingly gifted. Indeed, two of the very best students I've ever taught couldn't even pay to catch the bus from their village to Ashoka. We are paid for everything. And we believe that payment is not just a payment, it's an investment. That India needs these people. This is not simply an act of generosity on our part. This is a debt that we owe to India's young, talented people. Think of how many people in this country are potential world leaders, but have been denied the opportunity because of the accident of financial and other circumstances. We're here to help those people, but we're here to help anyone who needs help. We, as I said, want the best students not only in India, but for India. And we will help you come to Ashoka.
Thank you, Professor. I think the second question is also something to do with an anxiety that even I have gone through. One bad grade in grade 10th or one bad grade in grade 11th, 12th. How much is it going to affect one's admission into the university? And I think that question also has, it's a part of a broader question, which is, what is taken into consideration while giving admission? Is
Yeah.
there a cutoff percentage? What if a child doesn't have a strong CV, so on and so forth?
Yeah. So first of all, let me give you the famous advice that we've heard from Hindi films over the last 20 years. Two-word advice. If you've got one bad grade at high school, just chill. As I said during my presentation, you are not your grade. We have a holistic admissions process that looks at grades but doesn't think of them as absolute cutoffs. We're interested in who you are, your passions, your interests, your aptitudes, your capabilities. We're very interested in what you've done outside the classroom as well. Now, as I say that I'm mindful of the fact that people from some backgrounds may have access to extracurricular opportunities that people from other backgrounds don't have. So we take a very good look at what these extracurricular activities are, and we've learned to recognize which are real and which are bogus. There are some people who have been taught how to build their resumes. It doesn't take long in an interview to recognize whether a person is sincere and passionate about their extracurricular pursuits. Because ultimately, that interview is very important, as is something that we call the on-the-spot written essay. You're asked when you come for an interview to write something down over a period of half an hour in response to one of 5 questions that you're given. And that tells us a lot about you. What you write doesn't have to be written in perfect, syntactically correct English. We're interested in whether you can think for yourself, whether you can ask questions, whether you can think outside the box. We're not interested in you giving back to us what you think we want to hear. We want to be surprised. Honestly, education is about being surprised, not just you being surprised by us, but us being surprised by you. I feel as a teacher, I cannot teach you unless I myself am being educated, being led out of what I take for granted. So we want students who are capable of thinking more than anything else. I hope that encourages you a little bit. But we don't want people who memorize scripts and then parrot them back to us. That is not education. It doesn't do justice to what liberal education is, but also importantly, it doesn't do justice to who you are.
And there's a question about the personal essay too, since you touched on it, and I think I'm going to take that one because I wrote the essay and I was the campus ambassador too, and so I've talked to many students who wanted to apply, and I just want to say that there's no pattern of essay that you can follow. There's nothing that the university is going to see and say, this is the template that we want. So the best thing to do for the personal essay is to be honest and tell us why you want to study. And I think that's the best way to go forward. Professor, the next question is about the academics itself. And the question is, what is the difference between a major and an interdisciplinary major? What are the advantages of doing one over the other or anything like that?
Well, that's a very good question. So a major sticks perhaps a little bit more to the conventional path of a course of study at, say, a public university, where you're taking courses just in that one subject. Of course, if you are admitted to Ashoka, you will never take courses in only one subject because of all the foundation courses that you'll be doing, plus electives and other subjects. But many people want to do a major in just one subject, what's called a pure major. And that usually involves 12 courses, 12 separate classes over the 3 years. In some subjects like physics, it involves as many as 14 or 15, but it's usually 12. An interdisciplinary major tends to involve 16 classes over the period of 3 years. Now, the advantage of an interdisciplinary major is that in some ways it's truer to the ethos of a liberal education where you're taking courses across disciplines. But I would hasten to add that you can do exactly the same thing by taking a pure major and also taking other elective subjects, which may eventually become a minor. This is one of the main reasons to stay for the fourth year. Many people finish their major in their third year, and they stick around for the fourth year to complete an advanced major, but also to complete a minor or even to convert a minor into a second major, which you can do. So there are advantages to both. I always feel it's important to take courses across a variety of subjects, so long as you're not fixing yourself within a silo too early and thinking, I'm an economics student, therefore I won't take anything in English, I won't read a book, then you're not being an Ashoka student. You may as well go to a public university. I think if you come to Ashoka, you need to be committed to the ethos of, I have to push myself out of my comfort level and go outside the streams that I may have swum in at school and try out new waters, because eventually they're going to make me a more intellectually rich, a more ethically rich person.
The next question is about the fourth year, Professor, which you did mention in your previous answer. What are the advantages of the advanced major, the research at Ashoka?
I can't stress enough the advantages. On this, I'm absolutely 100% clear. And I'm sure you agree with me, Vignesh, because you've come back for your fourth year. The Ashoka mission was always understood from its inception. When I joined as the founding dean, and I was responsible for designing many of the academic programs, Ashoka was always conceived of as a four-year program. We feel in order to get adequate breadth and depth, you need to be with us for 4 years. That's advantage number one. Advantage number two is that in your fourth year, you get to write an honors thesis. Now, right now, you might think, oh, that's a bit scary, a thesis. But this is important. For a full year, you live with a project. You get to think about it in a way that you don't with a term assignment that you're thinking about for really just a few days. If you think about something for a year, it sharpens the edge of your thinking, but it also turns you into a much more flexible and humble person, because you have to try things out that often don't work. It means you have to keep confronting the limits of what you think is right in order to adapt. And you're doing this in conversation with faculty who are mentoring you and peers who are your colleagues. At the same time, you are teaching for the first time, not because you are going to be a teacher for your career, but because you are learning how to be a leader, how to model for your younger peers what critical thinking is. Now, as I've said, the people who've graduated from the fourth year, I think, have emerged streets ahead in terms of their development from those who graduate after only 3 years. They end up getting placed much, much better. Over and over again, employers come back to us and say, wow, those students who you gave us from your fourth year, can we have more of them? They're incredible, not just as workers, but as workmates, because they're interesting to talk to. Whereas so many people coming, my apologies in advance, but from public universities and IITs don't know what to talk about because they've been trained just in one narrow track. Third advantage, if you're thinking about higher education in America, you have to have 4 years after school. This is a problem so many students run into. They've taken their 3 years here in India of undergraduate education. They think they're ready for graduate school. They're not. I'm sorry. Even though many aspects of Indian education are impressive, this isn't to demean colleagues at other institutions. In order to be competitive as an applicant for a graduate program in America, you have to have 4 years under your belt. So there are all sorts of reasons why I think it's highly advisable to do 4 years. It's in keeping with the liberal arts ethos. It will make you a better person. I really believe that. It will result in much better placement for you. And if you're thinking of going to graduate school abroad, it will increase, not just increase, it will substantially increase your chances of success.
The next question is about the foundation courses, Professor. And the question is, does a student have to take all the spectrum of subjects, or are there any vetoes and picks? And I think there's another question that was also asked was, I've already decided on my major. Do I need to do the foundation courses?
Yes, well, if you've been listening to what I've been saying, the foundation courses are called foundation courses because they are the foundation. You can't go on to a major without the foundation. If you've already decided your major, I'd think again about applying to Ashoka. That's not what Ashoka is about. We believe that any economics major has to first have a thorough exposure to history, to literature, to sociology. It's no use just being good with numbers and one or two theories. You have to have a larger holistic picture of the world in which these numbers become meaningful, right? This is the problem that engineers so often face. They're very good at numbers, they're very good at designing bridges, but they don't understand the communities to whom they're designing bridges. There is an element of initiation into human and emotional intelligence that comes with the responsibility of being a citizen. That's what the foundation courses are. None of them are optional, and there's a reason for that. We believe that there are certain core experiences that every Ashoka student needs to have. So much of Ashoka is about giving you the choice to pick between different electives, to pick between different majors, different minors, different co-curriculars. But when it comes to foundation courses, everyone has to have this common foundation. It's a little bit like saying, I already know what my house looks like. Do I have to build it on top of concrete and bricks? Can't I just start with the roof? You can't. You have to have the solid foundations before you can build the roof. Any major is a roof. And this is the problem here in India. People have been rushed into roofs without building the foundations. And that's why the roof keeps falling in. We see it over and over again, even in Gurgaon with the flyover collapsing just the other day. That people who are insufficiently educated, very bright within a narrow field, but insufficiently educated for larger social responsibilities, aren't doing their jobs properly. That's what Ashoka is seeking to change.
I think there's an anxiety with that question too, and that is the entire first year is going to be taken away in the foundation courses. And how will I be really well engaged with the subject that I'm going to major in? Am I going to lose out on depth in my subject because I am covering a breadth of other subjects? That's the anxiety.
Well, there are two answers to that. One is stay till the fourth year and you'll get all the depth you need. But also, our aim in the foundation courses is to blow your mind. I'm sorry, it's as simple as that. And students who take our foundation courses over and over again say, I didn't know it was going to be like this. It was the toughest experience, but it was also the most amazingly formative, exhilarating, life-changing experience. Everything that I thought I knew, I had to take apart and put it back together. Now, right now, that might not sound appetizing to you. But if it doesn't sound appetizing to you, you've got to ask why. Why don't you want to take everything apart and question it and put it back together? If at 17 you think you know everything, then why do an education at all? I'd like to think that at 57, I'm giving away my age there, but at 57, I certainly don't know everything. The more I teach, the more I realize I still have to learn. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be pushed outside my comfort zone by students, by other faculty, by books I read, and find myself thinking in ways I'd never thought of before. It just makes you infinitely richer as a human being. It also makes you, to be matlabi about this, infinitely more employable in the world that we're living in. You have to be versatile. You can't be a one-trick pony. So saying, I already know my major, is saying, I want to be a one-trick pony. Wake up, it's the 21st century. You no longer have a job for life in a little office with a pen packet and someone who brings you chai. Virtually everyone in the current world is going to change their job many times. And they're going to take up positions that require competency in many different perspectives. You need to be a good communicator. You need to be someone who reads. You need to be someone who can ask questions. You need to be someone who can work with a team. You need to be someone who can think with numbers. You need to be someone who is economically and politically aware. All of these. Without the foundation courses, you're denying yourself the chance to be the kind of Indian citizen that India needs right now.
The next question is also somewhat related, Professor, but this is from the other spectrum. I'm extremely confused about what I want to do. And I am a commerce student too, so the only options that seem available to me are things like business management and so on. So how do I come to Ashoka? What courses do I choose? And the broader question in such a question is, how does one choose courses?
Yep. Well, that's a marvelous question. And the person who asked it, in a way, you're a typical Ashoka student. So many people come to Ashoka confused. Now, I think part of the problem is we are taught from very early on that confusion is a bad thing. If you're confused, you failed in some way to clarify for yourself, to be certain. I think certainty is one of the most dangerous things, especially early on. When you're certain, that's often when you make bad decisions, because you don't have yet enough information at your fingertips to make the kind of informed decision that you need to proceed. Now, we've had lots of students come to Ashoka from commerce streams who are confused. And guess what they end up majoring in? Yeah, some of them may major in economics. Some may major in computer science and entrepreneurship. But quite a few have majored in my subject, English. In fact, one of the best students I've ever taught, he was in our first batch, he was a commerce stream student. He took the JEE and got admitted to an IIT. He dropped out after 3 months because he wasn't getting what he was wanting and he was feeling even more confused. So he came to Ashoka and he thought, well, I was in a commerce stream, so I'll take economics. But he realized after a while, he didn't have the passion for economics. He could do it, but it didn't engage him. So he said, well, commerce stream, why don't I do computer science and entrepreneurship? He took that for a semester. It wasn't working. He came to see me as his dean. He said, Professor, what do I do? I said, what foundation course has most spoken to you? And he said, all of them. And I said, in which way have they spoken to you? He said, well, that's the thing. I'm interested in everything. I said, is there any foundation course in which you feel that that desire for everything has been most satisfying? He said, yes, in great books. There, I got to read something in science, something in economics, something in philosophy, something in psychology, and it set me on fire. I said, who was the teacher of that course? He said, Professor Madhvi Menon, who is an English faculty. I said, this is how she teaches. This is how people teach in English. These are the kinds of students that we want. He ended up majoring in English, and he just received the top scholarship from the Ph.D. program in English at Northwestern University. This guy is going to be a star. And he was confused like you when he came to Ashoka. He's also a brilliant bass player and was in a great band called Shorthand. You can look them up on YouTube. But that's typical of Ashoka students.
2 more questions, Professor, because we are nearing the end. The one question is about co-curricular courses. What are the opportunities available? Do they count for credits? Are they a part of the curriculum, or are they extra things that students do just as a sort of hobby? And the second question is one of my favorite things at Ashoka. It is about one of the favorite things. It's about guest speakers and invited lectures. by people. And so I want you to tell us about how it enriches our academics at Ashoka.
Yeah. So thank you. The co-curricular courses count for credits. They're required. Every student has to take 2 co-curricular courses. It's almost as if they're foundation courses too. They can be in performing arts and music, in language, in art. But we feel that every student needs to do at least 2 of these just to make sure that they're enriching their cultural palette. As far as outside speakers are concerned, you'd be amazed at the people who come through. I think we've had now something like 12 Nobel Prize winners speak at Ashoka. We've had the Dalai Lama speaking. We get people who are not, your typical sort of boring dinner speaker. We get people who are interesting, who think differently. And we really encourage students to come and expose themselves. We sometimes get controversial speakers, speakers from the far left, speakers even from the far right. It's important to expose yourself to how these people think, not simply say, I'm not going to listen to them because I don't agree with them. You need to inform yourself about a world in which the horizon of political thought covers a huge spectrum. So again, you can see the common theme here. At Ashoka, the idea is to educate yourself in the literal sense, the etymological sense of getting outside yourself. I think there's a way in our current social media age, and also the COVID pandemic, where we've all been under lockdown, we get too locked into ourselves and our sense of, I am this and not that. I belong to this community, not that community. I believe in this God, not that God. I'm in this stream, not that stream. In fact, the reality of the world is much more complex. We are all connected to each other. And no matter how much we might try and limit who we are by identifying just as one thing, the fact is we are all comprised of multiple possibilities that connect us in a variety of directions. Take advantage of that with your education. These are the years where you should be looking to forge connections, not narrow them. That is the reason why Ashoka's logo looks the way it does. It is not simply a circle, it's a sort of jali lattice of multiple connections. That's the kind of experience we want you to have at Ashoka. Something that whirls you around, but whirls you around in a way that you're not simply going around in circles, but you end up in different orbits continuously. Thank you very much.
Professor, we actually have time for one more question. So
Okay.
and I think this is also a very important question. It is about what is the pedagogical difference between public universities, which are highly ranked. The college magazines always have those universities and colleges listed among the top ranked universities. What is the difference between the pedagogy of those universities and Ashoka? And I thought here we can speak a little bit about the evaluation too.
Yeah, there's a world of difference. So this is, I think, actually one of the big problems with the Indian education system is that teachers don't create their own courses. They teach a curriculum. And that's partly because the central authorities are worried about what happens if a teacher just sort of makes up anything. They feel this holds teachers accountable to certain standards. But it also produces the unfortunate consequence that teachers are often teaching what they're not interested in. They're just going through the motions. It also means that teachers have no incentive to develop new classes and new ways of thinking. They write lecture notes that they keep with them for the rest of their lives. And it's not uncommon to hear of people attending lectures given by their professors who they'd studied with 50 years ago and find out that the professors are still giving the same lecture 50 years later. So at Ashoka, number one, professors design their own courses. That means the professors are passionate about what they're teaching. Everything in the course is there for a reason that makes sense to the professor. Number two, at Ashoka, We talk with you, not at you. We're not reading out lectures where you simply obediently sit with pens in hand and take down what we say. In fact, I often tell my students, put your pen down. Let's have a conversation. At times you want to take notes, but it's often best to do that out of class. In class, you want to be able to think on your feet. You want to be able to hear what others have to say. I think that you'll find that every Ashoka student has acquired a measure of comfort with asking questions, thinking on their feet, and inviting people to talk with them. Whereas people who've been to a public university have regarded their university education as heads down, be docile, do what you're told, don't care too much about it, just make sure you get a good grade. What kind of an education is that? Now, again, this is not to demean the faculty who teach there. They're doing what they have to do. But once you empower faculty to be the creative, truly inspirational presences they can be, you can see how inspired and in turn inspiring students can be. Vignesh, I think you can tell from the way he's speaking right now, is proof positive of that. He's not only articulate, he's someone who is very good at listening to people and hearing what they're saying and talking with them.
I just want to add a note about the evaluation at Ashoka, and that I think is crucial to the pedagogy too. We do have examinations, but the examinations do not seek information from the student, which is what a lot of public universities continue to do. And information is something that's based on memory, right? And so you are evaluated for that 3-hour memory, that how much memory can you retain for those 3 hours, rather than actually developing your questioning skills and your thinking skills. And all assignments, and we have a range of evaluation procedures, not just the examination. But even when there is the examination, it has less to do with information and more to do with thinking. It's asking you a question where you have to think immediately and think critically. And I think that's really crucial to the way Ashoka education functions.
Thank you for stressing that, Vignesh. As someone who came through an examination system himself and was rather good at it, I've also got to say it was disastrous. I remember days of mugging up and rote learning in order to pass my exams. What I mugged up, I have no memory of now. What I remember 40 years later from my time at high school and university are the conversations I had late at night with my peers about what I was reading, the ideas that completely blew my mind and transformed the way I think. That's what I remember. We want that to be your experience at Ashoka in the classroom. And so that's one of the reasons why most of the assignments are either essays, where we're asking you to make an argument rather than simply give back information, or creative assignments, where you're doing something in a group with other people that might involve, even if you're in a field like sociology, writing a play or making a film. We found that these are the experiences that are most educational and instructive for the students, because they learn from them, but they also remember them afterwards.
Thank you, Professor. That was a wonderful session. And if I were a student, I know a lot of my anxieties would come down, and I would be very inspired to be a part of the undergraduate program at Ashoka. Thank you very much.
Meru umeed hai. And sorry for the Hindi chauvinism. I speak Hindi, but not languages from elsewhere. But you'll hear many languages at Ashoka. But thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, everyone, for being a part of this session. Our next session is on Friday, September 11th, from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And it is about interdisciplinary sciences at Ashoka University. To register, please see that there's a link on the chat box. Please use the link to register. If you have any more questions that we could not answer because of the time constraints that we had, please write to us at admissions@ashoka.edu.in, or you can call us at the number that will be shared to you on the screen. And you can always find our contact details on our website, ashoka.edu.in. And please follow us on our Instagram and Facebook pages, where we will constantly update you about the programs at Ashoka, about webinars at Ashoka that you can come to and find out more about our program. Thank you very much.